Welcome to everyone. Thanks for everyone who is able to sign on live, and thank you to those of you who are watching. We appreciate that you're here too. My name is Dr. Megan Price, and I direct the Center for Applied Insight Conflict Resolution. Here with me is Mike Delaney. Mike Delaney is a senior trainer with CAICR and also acting chief of police with WSSC Water. As many of us know, he has a distinguished career in law enforcement with over 30 years of service, and he's been with CAICR for about 5. Thanks for being
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone.
So the reason we wanted to offer this quick refresher on insight skills is because, times right now are tense, right? They're tense for those of us living in Washington, D.C., and for people really around the country, and especially for law enforcement officers, right? The intensification of ICE raids and the federal takeover of police departments has the public on edge, and that puts officers in a difficult place. It was just a year ago where we were seeing significant gains actually in trust between law enforcement and community. And now many members of the public are starting to lose that trust. They're not quite sure what to expect. But we want to encourage you, everyone on this call and everybody watching, to remember that every interaction is an opportunity to change someone's perceptions. So in the same breath, it's not easy when times are challenging, because when trust is strained, our stress response is actually sensitized, right? We're all a little bit on edge. So interactions can turn to conflict in an instant. So to help us prevent that and get a handle on difficult interactions in a way that restores communication and balance and reduces resistance and strengthens trust rather than escalating and dividing, we're going to review some key skills and ideas from Insight Conflict Resolution, really the framework behind our 2 main courses: Engaging Conflict Through Curiosity for civilian students, and Insight Policing Conflict Resolution for law enforcement, which is geared towards police officers. So we're going to review the ideas and the skills. We're going to model some for you and give you the opportunity to use your skills in a video. And then at the end, we'll have some time for thoughts and questions. So as we're going through, be sure to write down anything you'd like to bring up at that time. All right. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's see how this works. Need to get my slide to move. There we go.
Oh, more admit.
All right. So the first thing about conflict is to remember that conflict is an interaction of behaviors, right? When someone is yelling, demanding, arguing, not complying, that creates an interaction of behaviors, and it also presents a barrier, what we like to think of in Insight as a closed door, right? It's frustrating, it's irritating, and it can spark an escalating dynamic, especially when we respond to conflict behavior, the arguing, yelling, resisting, fighting, with conflict behavior of our own. When we try to stop it by increasing our power or yelling back or fighting back, or even just turning and walking away in a huff, right? So we create interactions of conflict through what we do. And it's our natural tendency. But the problem is that when we react to conflict behavior, that just keeps the barrier in place. It keeps that door closed, making it harder and harder to change the interaction. But as we know from Insight Policing and whichever course that you've taken, another person's conflict behavior does not have to spark a conflict interaction. We can actually recognize conflict behavior as a barrier and engage it in a way that opens a cooperative path forward. So we can actually open the conflict behavior door, as we like to say. So engaging conflict behavior, opening that door, starts with recognizing that conflict behavior is a particular kind of decision. So what kind of decision is it? Conflict behavior is a stress-based response intended to defend against a perceived threat, right? So we've talked about this a lot. And it's not just threat in terms of physical harm or danger. Threat can present in three different ways: as a personal threat, where our sense of self is at stake, where we might feel misunderstood or disrespected. It can be a practical threat, where something that we're trying to achieve or makes our life function is at stake, getting to work on time, making sure we have enough money to pay our bills. It can also be a social threat, where the way we expect others to interact, or the way that we expect systems to function, when that's not quite working, when there's a mismatch there, that can generate threat, right? So if somebody cuts you off in traffic, or passes a law that you don't think is right, those can ignite social threats. Threats compromise our thinking, right? And they lead us to imagine and anticipate a dire future, an unwanted result that we want to prevent. So that's where conflict behavior comes into play. We are trying to prevent that dire future that we're imagining based on this threat that we perceive. So knowing this, that conflict behavior is a barrier, really, that results from a stress-based decision to defend in response to a feeling of threat, gives us an opportunity to do something about it. We can remove that barrier, and we can open the door. We can interrupt the stress response and re-engage critical thinking, getting curious. So how do we get curious? There are three recurring steps. First, we notice. We want to look out for indicators or cues of conflict behavior. Then we verify. We want to check out our assumptions to make sure we're on the right track. And then we want to ask curious questions to understand the thought process behind the decision making. And we'll use that sequence. We'll repeat it, use the sequence until we understand the concern motivating the conflict behavior, right? We want to discover the why. What's the threat and why that defense? All right. Noticing comes first, right? That's the first skill in the sequence. Rather than getting pulled into conflict and contributing to the conflict interaction that often escalates and leads to unwanted outcomes, we want to notice conflict behavior. We want to see that closed door. This helps us temper the threat that someone else's conflict behavior might generate in us, right? We're preventing escalation in this way. So when we notice, we're looking out for cues of conflict behavior, right? Actions, which indicate deciding, emotions and body language that indicate threat, how we're valuing the situation, and words that can express both valuing and deciding. So we're looking out for cues of conflict behavior in actions, emotions or body language, and words. So let's take a look at that. Let's see. Right. So when we can actually notice someone else's behavior as conflict behavior, what that does for us is it lets us know that something is going on for them. There's a decision to defend in response to a feeling or valuing of threat, and we can discover that. So let's take a look at how this might present, and just be on the lookout for conflict behavior. Here's a video. Oh, are we not hearing that?
No, it's not playing.
I have to get out. I don't have to get out my car. Listen, she telling you.
Hey, none of your fucking business. That's what I'm drinking.
Okay.
Unless there's been a crime.
I'm not sure why this is not loading well. Let's try that again.
Okay.
Oh, I'm using a new platform, Canva, instead of PowerPoint.
I don't have to get out. I don't have to get out my car. Listen, she telling you.
Hey, none of your fucking business. That's what I'm drinking.
Okay.
Unless there's been a crime committed, officer, I'm not showing my ID.
Committed, and you need to see.
All right, so we can notice the conflict behavior in those interactions. In the first one, I'm not going to get out of my car. The guy, is clearly expressing his action, his decision to defend. He doesn't want to get out of the car. In the next one, the person doesn't want to, says, I'm whatever is what I'm drinking. We can understand, we can notice his emotion. He's annoyed, he's irritated that the officer has approached him. In the following one, another traffic stop, we have another decision. It's my right to not give you my ID. And then here in this one, we're noticing that body language, that valuing. There's a lot of emotion in this man's composure. So the first step is to notice, right? We want to notice the conflict behavior because that sets us up to get curious. It's the first step. When we notice the behavior, we know that there's a whole lot of information that can be discovered around the decision making. Okay. All right. So once we've noticed, the next thing that we do is verify. There we go. We have to remember, even when our own stress response might be knocking at the door, that when we're noticing, we're interpreting someone else, and we might not have it right. But if we do have it right, that there is a decision to defend, a feeling of threat, a cue of conflict behavior, because the other person is activated in their stress response, which we know because of the conflict behavior that they're exhibiting, they're guarded. They're not going to be listening to us unless they know that we're listening to them. So otherwise, they're too focused on defending. So we need to verify for ourselves that we're understanding, that we're on the right track. And we also want to verify for the other person to show them that we're paying attention, that we're trying to understand what's going on for them. So this is key when someone is defending, when they're in that stress response space. We want to verify to understand ourselves, but also to show that we're paying attention and trying to understand the other person. That goes a long way. And to recap the skills that we use to verify, we can reflect emotion, right? I can see you're angry, that I can tell you're really upset right now. So basically using a leader phrase like I can see, I can hear, you seem, then you want to articulate the emotion that you're noticing. We also repeat actions that we are observing or that we're hearing somebody communicate. So you don't want to get out of the car, right? You just give that back to them. We're verifying, we're checking out that what our interpretation is on the right track. So we want to reflect and repeat when we first notice the conflict behavior, right? That's actually going to get us into a person's thought process. Those are our access points. That's how we start to open that conflict behavior door. Then when you start to get more information, which you might get simply by verifying because you've acknowledged that somebody is mad or they're not doing what you're asking, you may get more information, and you'll want to verify by paraphrasing, right? When we paraphrase, we're summarizing meaning, we're letting the person know that we're trying to understand kind of what they're telling us. We also want to paraphrase after we've asked a curious question, which is that third skill, because you're going to be getting more information. So you want to connect it. We want to connect the valuing and the deciding so that we can understand that why. What's the threat? Why that defense? What's leading someone to use conflict behavior in the moment and throw up that barrier? Okay. So after we verify, we ask a curious question. So curious questions are questions that come off as truly opening a conversation to understand what's going on for the other person, what's leading them to argue or resist or not comply. And the goal of that curious question, because when we ask them, we always have a goal in mind, it's to discover the thinking behind another person's decision making, right? Why are they defending? Why are they putting up that barrier? What is leading them to close the door? And again, we have two openings to really start discovering this. They're valuing their emotions, what they're how they're expressing their feelings, right? That tells us that there's a threat that we can discover, that there's a dire future that they're trying to prevent. And we can also follow their deciding if somebody's committed to an action, right? I'm not getting out of the car, for example, that's another access point. Why that defense? What makes that action, that decision, that conflict behavior the best thing to do? What are they trying to achieve, right, by using that behavior? So these are the things that we have in mind as we're asking curious questions to really unpack the why behind the conflict behavior. You all have a list of sample curious questions. And you remember, as long as you know what you're trying to discover, and why you want to, right, to reduce the tension and really get people to communicate with you, open that door. You can phrase curious questions in all kind of ways, but these 4 questions I find particularly useful. Questions for valuing what's upsetting about that, what's irritating about that, what's annoying you about that, right? So we really want to get the significance behind the feeling, or something that targets the future, the dire future. What are you worried is going to happen? What are you thinking is going to happen in this situation? What's the concern here, right? And then there are questions for deciding. Once you've noticed deciding, you've verified by repeating, well, what makes you want to do that? What makes you not want to get out of the car, for example? Or how will doing that make this better? So those are questions that really get at the motivation, the intention behind the action. So super powerful questions. I suggest writing those down if you're at a loss for some curious questions to ask. All right. So all of this, right, using these skills, noticing cues of conflict behavior, verifying what you notice to open communication and ask a curious question to get to the why, it really does 3 things. It interrupts the reaction response, and that gets critical thinking going again, right? When we're gripped by threat, we can't use our minds very well. We're simply reacting. But when we start to get curious, that interrupts the threat response and gets the critical thinking going again. It also reduces tension by making people feel heard and understood on what matters to them. And remember, that activates feelings of satisfaction, security, and relief, which are the opposite of threat. And finally, and importantly, getting curious reveals information that you can use to turn conflict into cooperation, right? It makes available information that otherwise would not be available that you can use to solve the problem and get cooperation. So all of this offers that opportunity to turn a challenging conflict situation into a cooperative one. And this changes people's minds, right? It changes their perceptions one interaction at a time, because the reality is people are coming to you, to their interactions with you, with their own baggage, their own preconceived notions. And to be able to excavate that and help people feel acknowledged and heard on what matters creates the partnerships that are really at the heart of public safety, and really being able to achieve anything that you need to get done with the cooperation of other people. So that is our recap of insight skills. And now what we wanted to do is we wanted to start by showing you a video clip, and Mike and I are going to model how it could have gone differently using the skills. And then we'll play another clip and have you suggest in the chat how you might use the skills. And then hopefully we'll still have a minute or 2 for some thoughts and questions.
Is there a reason why you're popping the door open like that?
I don't have a window that works. Is there a reason that you're pulling me over?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why I'm pulling you over. For one thing, inclement weather, you don't have your lights on. 2 things, you're not wearing your seatbelt.
It's daylight.
3,
I don't need the lights. And it's not weather. It's not raining.
oh, this is inclement.
It's not raining.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you why I'm pulling you over. Give me your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance.
No, call your supervisor. Why?
Excuse me?
Call your supervisor. Why did you pull me over?
77, 35. I'm property dog driver. I've already told you.
Why did you pull me over?
Step out of the vehicle.
No.
Step out of the vehicle.
What conflict behavior are we noticing, Mike?
So I see he's deciding to defend. He's not listening. He's refusing to identify himself, give up the license, and he's demanding for the officer to call a supervisor.
All right.
So those are the main conflict behaviors that I've noticed there.
Okay, so where do you think we could interject or start to use insight policing skills instead?
So going through the skill sequence, notice conflict behavior, then verify your interpretation and ask curious questions. I think once we notice this, so we see that he doesn't want to, or he's let's start with the request to call a supervisor. So
Okay.
we can verify that. Okay, that's the conflict behavior. Let's verify that because that's an action. So we're going to repeat what he wants. So by doing that, if I'm the officer, I'm going to repeat what the driver said. Megan, you're the driver. So you want me to call a supervisor?
Okay, so yeah, I'll take on his role. Yeah, so call your supervisor. Call your supervisor.
Okay, so you want me to call a supervisor?
Yeah, I want you to call your supervisor. This is ridiculous.
Okay, so I'm going to ask her a curious question at this point. So what makes you want me to call for a supervisor?
Well, I don't think I should be pulled over. I didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to paraphrase what the driver said. So you don't feel that you've done anything wrong, so you want to get a supervisor involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so help me to understand how that's going to help the situation by getting a supervisor here.
Well, if there's a supervisor here, then this isn't going to turn into anything bigger than it should be. Because I right now I don't feel comfortable at all.
Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase again. So you don't feel comfortable and you're worried that this will get out of hand, it'll get bigger than it should be.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, I think I know what her threat is. Okay, the driver feels that this situation is already blown out of proportion, but it'll get worse. So my next step is to move towards problem solving. Okay, so if I maybe I'm just help me to understand your fears about being stepping out of the car and just speaking with me without a supervisor.
I just know how these things go, and I don't want it to get out of hand. I don't think I don't know why you're pulling me over. I just was, pulling out of my friend's house, and look, I don't lights. It's not even raining. I'm not sure I feel comfortable.
Okay, so I'll verify a little bit of that, and then I'll get right into problem solving. So you just don't feel uncomfortable, and you feel that being stopped for your lights is that doesn't make sense at this point. Well, just so you know, we've had a lot of accidents in this area. We try to make sure people have their lights on. You have kids being let out of the school bus in this block here, and we just want to make sure everyone is safe. And seat belts, driving lights. When the clouds are out, when it's raining, we just want to keep everybody safe. So that's why I stopped you.
Okay. All right. Well, actually, that does make sense.
Okay.
All
And
right.
then, I mean, the door is open at that point, and you're able to communicate, and like Megan said, a person starts to feel relieved, satisfied, and secure, and the tensions come down a little bit, and now you're able to communicate better, and that's what we want to be.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
uh,
Instead, this one goes way out of hand. Okay, so let's give you guys on the call a chance to use those skills. Hopefully this works. I'm gonna play another video for you. Hopefully it's not too choppy. I'm really unsure why. But in this, there's a woman, she was stopped because her plate was run and it came up as stolen. So here she is. And as you watch, think about what conflict behavior you'd notice, how you would verify, and what question you might ask to start to open that conflict behavior door.
Lying.
Yes, you dropped the dollar, ma'am.
You really gonna sit there and lie? Everything I do is legit. Everything I do is legit. Everything I do is
Ma'am,
legit.
you need to relax.
Out of here. I don't want to talk to you. I want your badge number. I want your badge number. Badge number. You are gonna be on administrative leave. Badge number.
what conflict behavior did we notice? And you could type it into the chat, and we'll talk about it there. We're looking for her conflict behavior. Yelling, making demands. Yes. And it looks like she's upset, right? So how would let's if we go based off of her emotions in that situation, how will we verify that we think that she's upset? What can we say to her to verify that? What do y'all think? Yes, yes, it sounds like you're quite upset. So that's great. Yeah, we'll move to asking why she's upset once we verify. So Renee, that is good. We do want to ask her that once we verify that. Um, and I see Barnett says, I understand that you're angry. Okay, and then
Should I be her?
yeah, let's play it through. Let's play it through.
Or just
Let's start with I'm verifying. So it sounds like you're quite upset.
I am upset. I am upset. Can't believe this
Okay,
is
right. So then we move to the question that Renee had. So why are you so upset?
because you're accusing me of stealing. I am not a thief. This is my car. How could you accuse me of being a thief? It's just not fair. It's not right. It's not true.
Okay. So how would we paraphrase what Megan just said about the reason why she's upset? Anybody have an idea how we would paraphrase that? Okay, so I see Tanel is saying what I uh, what I hear you saying is that you're upset about the situation.
I'm upset that you've called me a thief. I'm not. How could you? Everything that I do is above board. I would never steal, and here you are accusing me of doing that.
Right. Okay. And I see Barnett. So you're saying that your car is yours and it's not stolen.
Exactly. It's not stolen.
Okay. All right. And then another one. So you're upset because the car is not stolen. This is your car. It's not stolen. Okay, and then so what we're doing is we're getting towards the why she's upset, what's her threat, why she's defending in that situation, and I think we got there in this situation here now. I think we have lower the voices and approach with empathy, but in command. Okay, so I think we start moving towards problem solving. Okay, and who can and I'll go into ad libbing, but if you want to type in what we do to try to solve it. I get that you're upset about the car. Let's talk about why it's reported stolen. I'm not saying that you stole the car, but it is reported that way. I love that one. So how would you respond to that, Megan?
Um, yeah, I am. Okay. Or yes, please, can we clear this up? Because there's something wrong. You've made a mistake.
Right. I understand that you feel we made a mistake, and you know what? It could have been a mistake. It happens sometimes. So let me recheck the tag. Let me run it towards the vehicle identification number, the VIN, just to see if there was some mix up on our end. But I definitely see that it could have been a mistake, and it is possibly your car, like you say. So we just want to clarify that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Whatever I can do to help you.
All right. And again, what we're trying to do is get that open door to communicate, to get those tensions to lower a little bit so we can communicate effectively and not be as, you saw the young lady's body movement. The video froze a little bit, but she's moving back and forth and she's very upset. So now, bringing those tensions down, we're able to communicate in that situation. And we have some more points in here. Man, y'all are really opening up now. Let's see. I get you upset about the car. We talked about that one. It appears that you're upset. We've received a report that your vehicle is stolen. And can I get your assistance to clear this up? And that can be if you have your registration card, your insurance information, but that's moving towards bringing that situation down and having open dialogue in that situation. But you understand what her threat and defense is, and you're moving in the right direction. So good. All great points here.